Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Qlik Dork back again for Dork Cast episode number 9. I'm all out of creative ideas, so we're just going to call this the static reporting episode because guess what? We're going to be talking about static reporting. Hey, wanted to let you know I slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and that's how I got the ideas for this wonderful topic. Now, over my career, I have actually had to build 1 or 2 reports, maybe with a couple of zeros at the ends of those, but we'll just, for the sake of this one, we'll say 1 or 2 reports. So I've brought an expert along. His name is Bernd Podhrasky. He's the Chief Technology Officer for Mail and Deploy. Now, Bernd, mail sounds like it might be something that you like put into an envelope and put a stamp on. That's not really what you guys do, right?
Well, you can do it, but no, we're of course it should have been called email and deploy maybe, but that sounds a bit too difficult.
That sounds great. And what is it that you guys actually do?
So with Mail and Deploy, we have created a reporting solution for Qlik View, Qlik Sense on-premise, and especially Qlik SaaS. Which is basically used to, as the name suggests, to email reports or to upload them to FTP, distribute them in various forms and ways. And yeah, we've been doing it since, I guess, around 2013. And we're with version 3 now. We've released version 3 in May this year, April, May, and yeah, excited to show you what we can do.
Now, as I shared, I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and as most people in America know, if you sleep at a Holiday Inn Express, you gain a tremendous amount of knowledge about a subject, even while you're sleeping. It's incredible. It's like magic. Now, what is your background, though? Because I don't think you have Holiday Inn Expresses by you. Do you have any actual technical background in this subject or the reporting solution that you guys offer?
Yeah, so unfortunately I had to do it the hard way. I couldn't just book a Holiday Inn Express room. So I got into software development pretty early in my life through my dad, basically. So when I was 13, I started, exploring the first programmed my first applications. I mean, I wouldn't call them applications in hindsight, but it were my first steps. And I was immediately in love, and so I decided to do a 5-year technical college in Austria, where reporting and management techniques were already a big part. So it was kind of a combination of the technical part of like different environments, how does a computer work, how does software development work in general, plus some management skills and reporting stuff. Then I had a few years where I did some ERP and CRM software development for a country here in Austria. Of course, in ERP and CRM, you always have to deal with reports as well, because you want to get your various reports for almost every aspect of your company. And in 2012, I then joined a company here in Vienna, which is called Unternehmensberatung. And they were already, so they've been working with Qlik since before I joined, so it's probably since the Stone Age. I don't know. So they were there from the very beginning. I immediately fell in love with Qlik. I loved the way it was so easy to, within 5 minutes, just a sample Excel sheet, I got up and running, and I had some decent dashboard, which was especially for the time a tremendous experience. And we got into the reporting side of things because the company that I joined was basically a consulting company, and we did a lot of projects for Qlik View in the beginning, and people, customers kept saying, hey, we have this great dashboards, that's wonderful. How can we get a PDF out of that dashboard? And you know, that's where it started. It started from a customer request or recommendation, basically. And you know how it goes sometimes. You then start developing a little tool that does what the customer needs, and then the next customer comes along and says, hey, that's great, but would it be great if it could also do, you know? And that's how it all got started.
I like it. That's I couldn't agree more. Necessity is always the mother of invention. And I think you and I probably both love analytics and love working in dashboards. But the reality is there are a lot of environments that in some cases legally are bound to have static reporting on file, right? Data changes at midnight, and they have got to have financials as of midnight.
Yes.
And they better be able to reproduce those 5 years from now.
Or even if you allow me to interrupt, even technical constraints still, even if it's the year 2021. So for instance, consider a sales representative traveling through the country or whatever. If you don't have internet or a good internet connection all of the time, it doesn't help you that there is a great dashboard in the cloud somewhere. You want to have your PDF that you can open at the, you know, when you have the appointment with the customer and you have all the information ready. So creating static reports in the morning, sending them to your iPad or whatever surface you use. Through a technical constraint, that's still the safer option than relying on internet connections in rural areas or whatever. Yeah,
and I wanted to make sure that we did bring that up. So that people aren't thinking, I'm doing analytics, I don't need that reporting stuff, right? We're never getting out of a reporting world, like just ever. They're always, in my eyes, going to be around. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with you, because between my sleeping habits and my 1 or 2 reports in my past, you know, way long ago, and the fact that you've really got a whole lot of technical skills in building these solutions, we average out to having a great conversation.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to it. But let me ask you, out of curiosity, how many nights did you have to sleep in a Holiday Inn Express until you got your amount of knowledge? I mean,
just one.
That's
like
amazing.
Magic. Yeah, there have been others that have done like brain surgery the day after. It is amazing. What that hotel chain offers.
So the advertisements are actually correct.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah. I've got the data to prove it. My one night. So how would I get started if I was installing Mail and Deploy, or somebody watching was going to install Mail and Deploy? What's involved with that? What do they need? What type of machine?
So actually, we've built Mail and Deploy in such a way that you can use it from a single workplace solution. So we do have very small customers or very small companies who they basically just have a laptop standing in their office that runs day and night. So they don't even have a server environment, and they just installed Mail and Deploy there, connecting either to a QVW file, to a Qlik view file that's on that laptop or on a network share. And you can have a dedicated virtual machine in your environment. You can install it on the QlikSense server. You can install it in a cloud environment. We ourselves do not yet offer like a solution where we host Mail and Deploy, although technically this would be easily possible. So it scales from one laptop in an office to enterprise environments. Yeah.
Cool. So they would need, they could run it in the cloud on their own managed servers, basically.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Gotcha. And I imagine, I think from previous conversations, you can connect to Qlik View.
Yes.
Like you said, just a local file, or servers like QlikSense And you can even connect to ClickSense SaaS. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all great. Now, I know if I was sitting in the audience, I would be like, show me, show me, show me. If you want to, could you please share your screen so
Sure.
you could show me? And we're going to start with something like the configuration because I know that that's a big issue, right? Like I got to get started somewhere. It's probably going to take me hours to do a configuration.
Yeah, so it's probably a matter of a few minutes, I would say. So you can see my screen now. That works.
I can see your screen. Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so before I actually dive into the mail and deploy stuff, let me show you what. I need to refresh my session here. Just let me do that quickly.
No,
so what I've done is basically I've created a very basic demo app that I've uploaded to our Qlik SaaS environment. Yeah, it just contains, like a pie chart, a pivot table, a P&L.
Are you using the ClickSense P&L extension there?
Yes, that's from the visualization bundle. Yeah.
Looks kind of pretty. If I was focused on finance data all the time, I would so be using this P&L extension.
Absolutely, especially because it supports styling in so many different ways. I actually loved working with it during the creation of the demo. Cool. So that's pretty nice. Okay. Yeah, and so it's basically an app that just consists of some fake data that I've split up into or that I've organized in various years and regions. Okay. So I can select the region here and the chart and the pivot table, they adjust to that.
Everything filters down, sure. Okay.
So what are the steps involved if we want to create a report from this app here? So first of all, let me quickly introduce the user interface of mail and deploy. So it won't take too much time, but I just want to make everyone feel comfortable.
Yeah, just acclimate them to the environment. Sure.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for. So mail and deploy, as you can see, is a web interface. So once you've installed it, either in your cloud or, as I said, on your local laptop or on-premise server, it runs as a Windows service, and you can connect to a management console of mail and deploy. And that's basically the start screen that you see. So when I refresh here and I connect, that's where I am. Okay. And apart from some stuff like user management and user group management, which is kind of an instance-wide administration task. So you connect to your Active Directory, to your Auth0 or any other OpenID. That I will skip that administrative part. The most important thing, or more important, is a concept that we call workspaces. So workspaces are pretty similar to streams in ClickSense. Okay. So they help you to kind of organize your reporting. So all of your connections to Qlik data sources, all your reports, all your distribution tasks, they're all organized in workspaces. And that helps you, of course, for security purposes, because it's very easy to just grant a particular user group or a user access to a single workspace. So if you had sales reporting and you want your sales users to only have access to those reports when they do, when they request reports on demand or whatever, it's really easy to do if you have a workspace dedicated to sales reporting. And if you had management reporting, you would probably add another workspace and add your management reporting stuff there. Okay, makes sense. So I've just created a very basic workspace called demo. So that's how creative I am. And the first thing that we need to do when we add a new workspace is we have to connect data sources. And a data source in Mail and Deploy is basically a QlikView document, a Qlik SaaS app, a ClickSense on-premise app. Yeah, you get the idea. Okay. Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Create Data Source. and it now asks me, okay, which type of data source do I want to add? In our case, we want to connect to a Qlik SaaS app.
Okay.
And there's just two things that I need to do here, basically. The first thing is in the URL field, I need to copy, the root URL of my SaaS tenant.
Okay.
Exactly. And the second thing is I need to create an API key in order for Mail and Deploy to connect. So Mail and Deploy uses the Qlik SaaS API to connect. And in order to get access to that, it needs an API key. We can do that in the profile settings in the Qlik SaaS console.
Yep.
And if I go to API keys here, I can create a new API key. Let's just call it Mail and Deploy Demo. Now, in a production environment, you would probably go for an API key that lasts longer than 6 hours, but for our demonstration purposes.
And while you're there, if you are watching this, you likely look at all my videos on YouTube. I've got a video about how to generate the API keys and the fact that you're going to need to copy this giant key that gets generated and store it somewhere if you go longer than a few hours and you need it more for than just testing for a demo. And I also show you in the video how you would configure the max length of time that anyone is allowed to generate an API key for. So out of the box, we put some reasonable limits there. And then you as the administrator would need to say, hey, how long can I keep that API key live? So I imagine you're going to now copy this giant string as opposed to retyping it, right?
I'm more the copy paste type of guy in this situation. Yeah. So I basically copy and paste it to the Mail and Deploy field. So, and once I have set up the URL in the API key, I can click this little button here.
Okay.
And that basically populates this drop down with all apps that are.
So hang on a second. Hang on a second, Bernd. That was like 1 minute plus our talking in my yapping, like 1 minute configuration. And I'm now literally configured to talk to that server and pull data out of any of the apps you've got in your SaaS tenant.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
it's as easy as that.
I gotta tell you, that's pretty quick. You clearly got the idea. Configuration is an important thing. People could be up to speed in 1 minute. I love it. Go ahead and now let's see how you would connect to that demo that you showed us.
Yeah, so I'm just going to select the BP demo app here because that's the one that I previously showed in my browser. And I'm just going to give this data source a name, and that's just an internal Mail and Deploy name. And I'm just going to call it demo app here.
These are creative titles, man. I'm taking notes. Yeah. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, very good. So once I've confirmed that, what I need to do is I need to press this button to basically rebuild the cache. So what Mail and Deploy does while we're, once I click this button is it connects to the Qlik SaaS app.
Okay.
And it reads some metadata, for instance, which fields, variables, objects, sheets are there in the app, so that during the design process of the report, Mail and Deploy does not always have a live connection to Qlik SaaS, because that's, of course, it's much faster to have it in the cache.
Sure.
That's
all right.
Basically it. Now our next step is we can go to reports and create a report. Now reports in Mail and Deploy can be created from, so you can create CSV, HTML, image reports, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, XML reports. You can also create QlikView embedded reports, which is, the famous QlikView report designer that was built into the QlikView desktop client. So you can even use that, those reports. And in case you're wondering, PDF is not an option here. That's simply because a PDF will always be the result of another file. So if we wanted to create, so we can design a Word report. And when we then distribute that report, we can decide, okay, before you send the email, convert this Word document to a PDF file. So
that makes a lot of sense. So this is your list of templates that you have to start from.
Yeah.
I would use a template and then put information in there that I've got out of my metadata from the data source.
Exactly. And I'm going to show you in a minute how that works. So I'm just going to pick a Microsoft Word report now, and I'm just going to call it region report, because let's say we want to set up a report that contains data for one particular region.
Okay.
Then I can confirm this. And by clicking the third button here, click this button to design this report. I'm going to launch the designer. And as you can see, the designer is still a desktop application, simply due to the fact that editing Word, Excel, PowerPoint templates, web-based is still something that is so a lot of customers
I think everybody understands the issue there.
Yeah, great. So now that I skipped a step here, so let me repeat that. So once I've opened the designer, I basically see my report here on the left side with all of its contents, like parameters, templates, report elements. And the first thing I need to do when designing a Word report is I need to click templates, and I can either import an existing template or create a new one. In our case, let's start from scratch. And I'm just going to name this template. So you see, I can even be more creative.
It's astounding. It is astounding.
Yeah, maybe I should go into marketing. Once I've double-clicked this template here, you can see that just a regular Microsoft Word instance shows up here. I can, have my title, region report, whatever. And now let's say I wanted to get this this pie chart from the Qlik SaaS application into this report. Now we have something that we call data source browser here. So if you go to data source browser, you can see all the data sources that you have connected. So in our case, we only have one.
Right.
And you can see all the fields that are in that app, all the sheets that are in that app, and all the objects in that sheet. So we have our P&L table here, we have our pivot table here, and we have our pie chart here. And I can now simply right-click the pie chart, choose new chart element, which basically says I want to get the image, the graphical representation of that object rather than the data behind it, which is also a possibility. And then I can just drag and drop it into the report. Adjust the size of the placeholder, whatever you wanna do. And we have an additional option here, which is a quality setting. And in order to get this chart in a very high resolution so that we can still have a non-blurry, sharp image, even when zoomed in or printing, we're just gonna pick that. And actually, we're ready to go. We can press preview. That will open up the log file for a preview. You can see basically every step that it takes. It's processing the report element. It may take a few seconds more when we do it the first time because it does some caching in the background. Yeah, and basically, we have now
and that was it. I mean, other than our talking, you're configured and you got a data source in 2 minutes, and then you just search for what elements are in your app that you want to put them in your report.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. And as I get ready to celebrate Thanksgiving very soon, pie is really important, but it would be pumpkin pie, not a product group pie. But I appreciate that. Now, one of the things that I saw in the app, when you showed us the demo, I was paying attention. You've got a pivot table in there, and being able to report out of a pivot table is a pretty big deal to people. Are you guys able to do the pivot table or that P&L extension, or are you limited to just like the out of the box, the pie charts, the bar chart type stuff?
Yeah, so let me get back to the app pretty quickly. So we actually support both the P&L and the pivot table. So
that's crazy.
Let's pick this pivot table that I've just named example pivot. You see my
Yep.
creativity has no end. So let's get back to a report designer.
Yes.
Let's go back to a data source browser, and you can see that we have our example pivot listed here.
Okay.
So I'm just going to right click, new table element.
Okay.
And I'm just going to drag and drop it just below the sheet, the pie chart here.
Okay.
And that gives us a placeholder here. Now, once we have selected this report element, this is a table report element here, you have various options to set up your pivot table. For instance, we can check to have the indented row style, which Qlik Sense, which you're probably familiar with.
Property, right? Yep.
You could even, change whether you want all dimensions of the pivot table to be expanded or only, just the first dimension or no dimension at all or whatever. And there's some additional settings, but let's not worry too much about those complicated settings.
Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited now.
Very good. Yeah. So while this is rendering here, let me say one thing. By default, mail and deploy, and we can see it in a second because it's already finished. By default, mail and deploy will try to show the P&L table in a style that is as close as possible to the original Qlik Sense object. So you see, you have your borders, you have your number formats, you even have your colors. So we have red margins below a certain percentage and green margins above a certain percentage. And that just gives you, with a matter of 2 clicks, actually, it gives you a nice representation of that pivot table out of the box, basically.
Now, this brings up another thing, because now you kind of blowing me away, the fact you got the pivot table and the P&L extension, and you keep the formatting. But as I look at those numbers, those don't mean much to me, because I'm in the US, and that's not the way we do numbers. And this is hard for me sometimes with my limited reporting. I'm part of a global partner team, and believe it or not, when I put the commas and the dots in the wrong place for the people in Europe, they don't seem to like that very well.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
What can you do? I mean, it's a stretch. Like, you're already blowing me away with the fact you've got the pivot table. Is there any possible way that I could get you guys to think about, putting in some type of localization to help me have the report? If it's in the US, this is with dollar signs and commas and periods in the right place. And if it's in Europe, they're in the right place for those who are in Europe.
Absolutely. So before I show you the localization stuff, let me add one more thing to the report so that we can have we have a date let's say the current date, so that you can see it with date formats as well. So I'm just going to add a new expression element here, and I'm just going to call this today. Okay. And the content of that expression element is just format of today, date.today. So let's not worry about that syntax too much. There is other ways to do that, to do the same thing. I'm just going to use this function here. So we want to have it in a formatted way, and let's just put it right here.
All right.
And create another preview. And yeah, so by default, if we do not apply any localization settings, what mail and deploy will do is it will apply the regional settings of the user that actually runs the mail and deploy service. Since this is since this is my machine, it will be in German format. So you see day dot month dot 2021. In the numbers you already mentioned, we do not have 1,000 separator, so it's actually a blank, and we have a comma as a decimal separator. Now, if we wanted to create this report for our for American report recipients, if I go back to the report here, so on the report level, there is a property culture name here. And culture name is basically an expression field. And an expression field in mail and deploy always means it can be dynamically calculated, it can be dynamically fetched from Qlik or whatever, but it could also just be a constant value. So for instance, if I wanted to have the report in US American format, I can either type, double quotes EN/US, or we even have built in, so you can click this magic button here, and
I like magic buttons.
Click culture name, and then you get a list of all cultures available.
Wow.
And
you guys you've really made that easy.
English, United States, and then it inserts the code automatically for you.
All right, all right.
That's all we need to do. So let's preview it.
Oh boy.
And it will give us a date that is hopefully in. Let me think about why that didn't work. Let me check this. Okay, it didn't work for the date. I have to think about that. But you can see the numbers. They now have a comma here and a dot in the as a decimal separator.
Sure.
Let me. Right. I'm just. Let me.
Is the date perhaps because you purposely forced it to be formatted?
That is a good point. That's a good point.
So if you just said date today, maybe that.
Yeah, I think it should still be with the format function.
Who knows?
Who knows? That's a good point. No, it actually should be with the format function. Otherwise, it will give us the. Oh, damn! That's the problem with live demos. Yeah, I actually have to think about why that didn't work.
That's okay. I know one thing. I hope the people in my group aren't watching this, because when I am able to generate it in their currency formats, I'll tell them I was working on it for months.
Yeah, let me. I'm not quite sure why this what I have done wrong here. But of course, sorry. You were absolutely right. I think it is because I specifically told it to format it like that. And that is day, dot, month, dot, year. So that's why we get this output.
Right.
What we can make use of here is, I'm not familiar if you, I don't know if you're familiar with these format strings that you can use in Excel and actually also the ones that you can use in Qlik Sense.
Okay. Yep. And
there are those standard date format strings. So I'm just going to Google it so that you can see how that works. And you have those. So if you, for instance, specify the D format, that represents the short date pattern according to whatever localization you have. So so I should have probably from the beginning just put a D here, which means depending on the localization of the report, put the short date format of that report of that region in there. And
come on,
that should
I'm crossing my fingers for you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
No, this is actually good. That's sometimes I think with the marketing type of videos, people just see something magically work. That's perfect.
Yeah, now we got it. So that was, and the funny thing is, when I prepared for this session, I wrote it down on paper. Don't forget to put that format string correctly, because otherwise it won't work. And guess what? I don't know where that paper is. And
I hear you. And then I started yapping. Yeah. The beautiful thing about these, I do nothing to prepare.
and you can see we still got it working within 2 minutes. So
and I think that's a great example for people who are then going to look like, how would I do it if I wanted something different? It's not in the video. Now they know how to go look for those short data, the date expressions. They know, oh yeah, I'm familiar with these formats in Excel. So that's perfect. And I got to tell you, Bernd, this is going to be a game changer for my team, because I can now present the same information, but when I send it to somebody in Europe, they're going to see their thing. I do not have to go off and prepare 2 different reports, right? And I don't have to change my ClickSense app. I keep doing what I do. I can now send it. And I feel like Christmas is coming early. You're giving me all these gifts in my stockings here. I'm going to ask for the moon while I'm here.
Sure.
A lot of times I've got to do slightly different versions of reports because somebody's like, I don't want the pie chart. I just want the pie chart and the KPI. I don't want the table. I don't want the details. And it's the same stuff. And I just want this, and I just need that, and I need these 2, but I don't need the 3rd. What can I do to avoid creating 95 templates and get the same data to people when I'm deploying? Since you're handling the user's localization stuff for the dates and the numbers, is there anything that you guys could maybe do to help out with that scenario?
Absolutely. So I'm going to close this template here, and I'm going to delete the template that we have already created, because I want to basically start from scratch, because it's easier to follow probably.
Okay.
So as you may have noticed, there is not only one template per report. We can actually create multiple templates. So for instance, let's create a template that we will call title. Let's create another template that we will call, let's say, overview.
Okay.
And let's create another template, which we're gonna call details.
All right.
Now I can go into, so each of those templates is now a Word document in and of itself. So you can design each template individually.
Okay.
So let's start with our title template, and let's just give it a title, region report. Let's give it a, maybe let's give it a table of contents, so that you can also see that it works with tables, with TOCs. So I'm just gonna table of contents, and I'm just gonna insert references, table of contents, and that's a very no table of contents entries found. That's fine, because we don't have any headers
yet.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Now that is our title page. Let's now go to our overview. So of course, this doesn't need to be one page only. You can have templates that have multiple pages. Mail deploy basically doesn't really care. So I'm just going to add a new heading, and we're just going to call this overview. And in the overview, we want to put the chart. So the pie chart and the pivot table. Or no, let's put
the pivot table on the details or something.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea.
That makes sense.
And then go to the details and call this one details, and put the pivot table right in here. And that's it. So what we can now see when I open this additional information down here is that it still has an error in the report. It basically says, hey, the report has more than one template, but no template name expression. So what does that mean? That means I've given 3 templates to that report, but I have not yet told Mail and Deploy what to do with those templates, how to, how to combine them, or yeah, mail and deploy doesn't really know, okay, what can I do with that?
Sure.
So going back to the report, we do have a template names expression, and a template names expression is a dynamic function that has to return one or more template names. So for instance, if I only write title here, and title is the name of one of the templates, and I'm going to preview it, what it will do is it will just give us the title page and the table of contents with no entries, of course.
Okay.
We can also add multiple names here. By the syntax is pretty easy. Create list, and then we simply say title and details, for instance.
Okay.
And that will make mail and deploy pick the title template and the details template in exactly the order in which they are specified here, and merge them to a
single document. Yeah.
To a single document.
All right. Now it's making sense. So rather than me building one giant report that's got 20 pages, you're saying if I know I've got to send this to different groups who are going to need different things, I can break the different things into different templates.
Absolutely. And you can see that the table of contents automatically updates. We now have a details part here on page 3, and that's where our pivot table is right here. Now, so essentially the feature is used to instead of having one massive template, where you have lots of conditions and nested repeaters or whatever, you can create modules, or you can split up your report in multiple modules. And dynamically on the fly decide how they should be put together and merged, and what the final report should look like. Yeah,
you've probably done some object-oriented coding in the past with the idea that you define separate modules and you put them together, and they're just black boxes as far as the report itself thinks.
Exactly.
And that's really cool. So I got to confess, man, clearly sleeping at Holiday Inn Express one time, I'm not even sure the right questions to ask. So I tell you what, let's just assume I know nothing now, because clearly this is at a different level than what I slept on last night. The neighbors were noisy. That was probably the problem. I didn't get solid sleep. Is there anything that you would say, Dalton, you're not even asking me the right question, I will just blow your mind with something? Like, what else could you show me about this then that would just blow my mind, and I probably don't even know to ask?
So one thing that I could show you was, is how we can fully automate the reporting, or the report that we've just designed, with just some few adaptations, in such a way that we control who gets reports in which regional format, with which modules, through a Qlik app, actually.
So I just assumed this was going to be really complicated configuration that I've got a hand input. You're telling me that what I was thinking of, the configuration, you can actually define in a Sense app.
Yes.
That's crazy.
So let me show you. I have created a second app, or I created a second app beforehand, which I simply call BP Meta app.
Okay.
And that Meta app contains information about, who should get the report, to which region should the report be filtered, in which culture does the user want to get the report, does the user want to get the report by email? If yes, which email address? Does the user want to have the report saved to the file system? If yes, which file path? And as you can see, which modules should the user get? So I've just added the modules separated with a semicolon here. So title, overview, details means title, overview, details. So the full report in this case.
Okay.
Whereas title overview just means that the pivot table will be missing from
right.
Sure. A report.
Yep. Okay.
Now, this is a little bit more complicated to set up than what we previously had, because we need to do some changes on the report, and we need to set up a task that does it. But once you see how it goes, you will say, well, that's really easy.
And so where does this data come from that you have in this app here? That's
just what I was going to say is, so why did we decide to put all that in the Qlik Sense app? Well, so we've had customers requesting things like, okay, look, I can design beautiful reports. I can connect them to QlikSAS, to QlikView, whatever. I can mix reports from data from QlikView, QlikSAS, on-premise, everything in one report. How can I automate it? Because we have a lot of changes in our company. You know, a new sales representative joins the company, another one leaves the company. We do not always want to go into the mail and deploy user interface and, you know, remove the email address from the email recipient list and add another one. We want to have a fully automated way. And so we were thinking about, well, what could be the data sources that contain these kind of meta information? And we came up with, okay, some customers have it simply in Excel, you know, they just maintain an Excel sheet. Yep. Some have it, some customers even have an intranet page. So they allow regional managers to log on to an intranet page that they already have.
Okay.
And then they can set up who gets which report in which format and so on. And so we thought, okay, there's a lot of possible data sources. Some might have it in an Oracle database, some might have it in a SQL Server.
Oh my gosh, wait a second. So you were thinking, what could I use that could connect to like a ton of data sources and already has all the connectors there?
Yeah, why reinvent?
Holy cow, so you use Sense because it can connect to anything.
Exactly.
As the ability to get, if it wasn't an Excel, great. If it was a CSV, great. If it's a web page, great. If it's a JSON stored out in S3, great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy cool.
So the correct answer to your question, where this data comes from, is I don't actually care. It comes from any data source that Qlik supports.
That is a
and we thought,
answer.
why reinvent the wheel if Qlik comes with a massive amount of connectors? They're tested, they're stable. Wow. Qlik has the associative.
That's so cool. This is almost like recursion now.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it. Okay, cool.
So before we actually
that way to avoid me having to go hand manage this constantly. All right.
Exactly. So before we actually we can actually use that meta app, we need to kind of adjust our report a little bit. So first of all, something that we totally forgot is we haven't yet talked about filters yet, and filters, of course, selections play a very important part in Qlik Sense. So just to quickly show you how we introduce that. So there is, if you click on the report, you have these preparation actions down here. And preparation actions are basically a list of things that you want Mail and Deploy to do before it creates the report. So you can activate a bookmark in a data source, you can filter, you can activate a Qlik Sense theme. If you have a specific theme that you want to use for reporting, you can activate it here.
Wait. So when I'm in my analytics, I could be using one theme that is really appropriate. There's an awful lot, like your web UI is kind of a white font on black, dark background. And I know there's people that use those types of themes for their analytics. But those kind of things do not show well if I print that object, right? Like I don't want to print it that way. So you can actually change the theme that's being used for what it's going to display versus the way I would see it in the Qlik Sense app.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's crazy cool. Okay.
You could set a variable in the Qlik Sense app, if a variable changes the behavior of the Qlik Sense app or some calculation.
And it looks like you've got a way to do a reload.
Yes, you
so
can
force the Sense app to go reload before running this report.
Yes.
To make sure that when you print it, it is latest and greatest.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Very cool. Okay.
Now let's simply start with a filter data source field action here, and that pretty much that simply allows me to select the field I want to filter to. So
right.
I'm just going to pick region here.
Okay.
And again, we have a list of expressions to which we want to filter. So for instance, I could just type in the constant Europe. Basically, that's it. There's lots of additional options, but we're not gonna worry about that right now.
Yeah, I got the idea.
So just gonna create another preview, and we should now, you can see it filters field region in the app.
Okay.
And it then shows us.
I like the little trace log there going on as opposed to dot. I have no idea. That's cool.
Yeah. So we want to, let me just say one word about this, because that's a very important issue. Sometimes if you, let's say you forget to set a filter and your preview takes ages, you're just waiting for that report to come up and you're like, what is going on? By having that preview log, you can actually see which report element takes so much time, and then abort the preview creation and go back to that element and check, okay, maybe I forgot to set a filter there or something like that. So yeah, you can see our pivot table now only contains data for Europe. Okay. Now there's one additional thing that we need to talk about, and that is parameterization. So what do I mean by parameterization? Remember, in the filter, we have actually set a constant filter here to Europe. In the culture setting, we have a constant string here, ENUS. Our template names, they are hard-coded. So that doesn't suit our or that doesn't fit our requirement to actually create that report multiple times with different settings here.
Sure.
And we do that by having parameters. So you can imagine parameters to be, so the report itself is a black box, basically. Yeah. And you can feed it with parameters. Okay. Those parameters are then used in different ways inside the report. We will see in a minute how we can use them. And then the report creates a PDF or docx or XLSX file or whatever in return. So if we go back to the start in our mind, we want to have a report that is filtered to one particular region that will be created with one regional or regional settings. Okay. And with a custom list of templates that we want to dynamically merge. Sure. That means our report needs 3 parameters. So one parameter is the region. Yeah. And I'm just going to add a default value to that report to that parameter. Okay. And the default value simply is, if you create a preview, the default values of parameters are used. So you can set up your default values to. Yep. Then we need a second parameter, which we will call culture. And I'm just going to set this default value to ENUS. Okay. And the third parameter is modules. And that is just title, semicolon, overview, semicolon, details. Okay. Now, the important thing to mention is, just by adding those parameters, we have not yet changed anything. Right. What we now need to do is we need to go to the report. Okay. We need to go into our culture name expression here. And instead of hard coding it there, we're going to pick the parameter. We're going to use our magic button again. I like magic button. Report parameter, culture. Such a slick interface. in the filter, we're just gonna get rid of hard-coded Europe here.
Yep.
We're just gonna say magic button, report parameter region.
Yep.
And in our template names expression,
Yep.
what we're
And
gonna do is
create a list.
we're gonna split the report parameter modules by semicolon, and that returns us a list of so that's basically just used to split one string into multiple array entries.
Okay.
So that means whoever calls that report will be able to provide culture, modules, and region, and will get in return a docx or a PDF that exactly contains what we've set up here.
And now okay, you're gonna show a preview. How then? Once we see a preview of this, because it's using parameters.
Okay, sorry. I did it I knew I was gonna run into this. This is exactly the other way around. So yeah, I always do that, and I don't know. I don't know why. But it's good to know that the audience at least knows it's live. It's not.
Yeah, this
so
is
we
not
make
memorized.
our mistakes. Yeah.
That's.
So you wanted to ask a question.
Once we see this preview, how do we then take the data from that QlikSense app to get it to this point?
That's exactly the next step that we're gonna take. So we have our.
Okay.
So we have our, and we do have the English culture, so American thousand separated, that works. So for now, let me just do one more thing, because it's easier to recognize the report if we add the date here. And let's also add the region for which that report is created to the title page, so that we then evaluate the results. We can immediately see on the title page, this is a region report or regional report for Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to create an expression element. Magic button. We're going to click region here.
Use that magic button.
And we're just going to put region here. And let me just test it one more time so that we don't get a surprise when we then set up a distribution task.
Okay.
But we should be, we're done with the report once we have, once that this is working.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more complicated than just having constant values for your filters and that. But at the end of the day, it's just a report parameter that you use.
It makes total sense, right?
So we have a region report for Europe. The date is in US format. That works. So let me now go back to the management console, because we're actually done with the report so far. We have designed the report.
Yep.
So before we can actually use the Meta app here, I need to connect the data source just as I
to that app. Okay, that makes sense.
To that app, yes. So I need to create another data source, QlikSense SaaS app. Again, I need to copy my tenant and my API key. So
this was pretty smart, just leaving that thing up. I kept wondering why you were leaving that screen up. It's because you're going to use it.
That's exactly why.
Way ahead of me, Bernd.
So then I just pick my BP Meta app in this for this data source, and I just call the data source Meta app, and I rebuild the cache as we previously did.
So we pulled the metadata from Sense about the metadata app. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Love it. It's a metaverse.
It's that's the future. That's what we're going to. Okay, so let me, there is already a task here, which I'm going to delete. So let me create a new task here, which I will call region report distribution task. Okay. And one word about tasks in Mail and Deploy is, so tasks are basically like batch files or script files, with the exception that you don't have to type all the stuff yourself. You can actually use magic buttons to do the stuff for you.
Okay.
Okay, I will start by creating a cycle action first. So what does that mean? Cycle action means I can instruct mail and deploy to do something, for instance, for every distribution ID that there is in the app.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's basically a cycle over this table, more or less, if that makes sense, or a loop over that table.
That makes sense. Okay.
So we're just going to pick the data source field we want to cycle over. Let's call it distribution ID.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to set up a value name here. We don't need to worry about this value. So that's just a way to access the current value of the cycle, but we won't need that. The only option we need to tick is automatically filter to cycle value. And what that means is, so let me just confirm this. And remember, we have ticked this button here.
Yep.
What that means is every action that we put in between cycle and end cycle.
Okay.
Mail and deploy will do the following. Mail and deploy will go to the Meta app and say, okay, there are 3 values for distribution ID. I'm going to start with the first one. And because we ticked filter field to cycle value, it will say, okay, I'm processing the first cycle value, so I'm going to filter that cycle value.
Okay, so then you'll have the appropriate name and every region. Okay,
exactly, yeah, exactly. So another reason why going with the Qlik solution rather than directly connecting to Excel or whatever is Qlik provides us with this associated data model, which is perfect for those reasons. So we can filter. It immediately leaves us with the values that what else can you ask for?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Yeah. And then it processes the second report, the second distribution ID, and so on.
Yep.
Now, within the cycle, we now want to have a report document created. So we have an action that is called create report document. And that basically means from the report that we have designed, create a specific PDF file or a docx file. So render the report more or less.
Right. Okay.
We're just gonna call this report. It's not important for now. And let's make it a PDF document. Okay. And now what you can see here is we have parameter values, a list of parameter values. This can be used to specify what values should the input parameters of our report get. So remember, we have added 3 parameters to our report: culture, modules, and region. Now, to which value do we want to set the culture parameter to? Well, pretty easy. Magic button, data source field value, the culture field of the Meta app. Remember, we are filtered to the current distribution ID. So the culture field contains DEAT. That's perfect. That's what we want to send into the report. Yep. Next parameter value, region. What do we want to set the region to? Well, whatever the region of the current distribution ID is. Okay. So again, magic button, data source field value, region field of the Meta app.
And if I wanted multiple regions for one user,
that automatically works.
The parameter was working. It was going to split them, right?
No, not necessarily. So if, for instance, distribution ID 2, if that was actually associated with multiple regions in the Qlik data model, then it would automatically pass all associated regions to the report, and the user would get the report for Europe and North America,
Asia,
whatever.
Not one Europe and one Asia. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You can actually set up both, but so you could set up mail and deploy to create one report per region, or one report per user. And if that user is connected to more than one region, then
no, this
that
is good.
report.
I wanted to make sure we brought that up, that sometimes I want to see that combination.
Perfect. And then last but not least, we have the modules field that we need to pass through. Yep. So again, all we did so far was, you know, we instructed mailing deploy, hey, mailing deploy, start with the first distribution ID, filter to that distribution ID, and then create a report whose parameters we feed from data from this Qlik app, from the region, the culture, and the modules here.
Right.
Now, and just to showcase that this is possible, we now want to talk about the distribution. So we do have fields here, send email, yes or no, save to file system, yes or no. And what you can do in mail and deploy is you can have conditions in your distribution tasks. So we could say something like, okay, we want to create a new group, and that's just a group of actions.
Okay.
And we're going to call this group save to disk, question mark.
Right.
And the condition for that group is that the data source field save to file system equals yes.
Okay.
So whatever actions we put into this group,
right,
they will only be executed if save to file system is set to yes for the current distribution ID.
Cool.
And in that group, what we're going to do is we're going to say save content to file system, and we pick the report that we have created.
Parameter, we're going to use that field as the path.
As the path. So the file path here.
Lights out, cool. Okay.
So magic button, data source field value, and I think it's called file path. Here it is. Of course, we could also use that magic button. So we could do something like magic button, and then we can still add a subfolder or anything like that.
Okay.
So you can dynamically, they're fully dynamic expressions that you have here, and you can
that would be, and I think that would be important because there are times where I need to have an archive, and maybe I've got 20 reports that are going to be archived, and I need them to be by dates.
Yes, or you want things like, oh, sorry, I wanted to go to the Qlik SaaS app here. Let's say file path here does not contain the full path to the file, but just the subdirectory, because your root network share path is always going to stay the same. In that case, you could say root network drive path concatenated with whatever is in the file path.
And I could have the sub path, and then if I was I could have a parameter that says, hey, I want this to be a test report. It goes to a test location.
Absolutely.
Or I just toggle that to be live.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
So basically, that is our report. I mean, for email, it works exactly the same way. So
I understand. Yeah, I get that.
So you just create.
Okay.
I'm not going to save it. I'm just going to quickly show it. You create a send email action, and you can see subject is an expression field that can dynamically be fed by those magic button stuff. Body, attachments, attachment name, and recipients. And you can have a recipient from a Qlik app. So you can read the recipients from the Qlik app, and that's basically what you would do to get to your recipients here.
Cool.
Okay, but let's run the task now, because obviously that's what we want to see. So I can click run here. I can switch to the execution status, where I can see all currently running tasks, and I can actually follow the log file here. So you can see it cycles over distribution ID, and it starts using the cycle value 1. So it starts with, distribution ID 1. So while it does that, let me go to the directory. And we should have a report there in just a second. Yes, BP demo reports and North America. Oh, it's an I accidentally chose HTML instead of PDF.
That's
but
okay.
Never mind.
Okay.
But you can see it's a report for North America. It has the US American date format because David Lachek has region North America, US, and the module should be title, overview, and details. So he should, the report should contain, yes, the title, then the overview, and then the pivot table as a detail. If we go to our second report, and I think the task has already completed anyway.
But that's really cool because we didn't talk about HTML before. But, you know, I said I've done 1 or 2 reports before. They're one of the 2. I just got lucky. We needed the reporting to be available on our intranet site. And so
that's a good example. Yeah.
HTML, if you need to see that report out on your intranet site, you would simply be overwriting the data each day, right? That's cool. Okay.
Yes. So let's have a look at the second distribution ID. That should be a region Europe, the Austrian culture, and only title overview. So we should not have the pie chart in there.
Right. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
So Europe.
Yep. So now the Europe and the Asias are there. Yep.
Austrian date format. Oh, we do have the, oh, sorry, the details is missing. We only have the overview here. Sorry, title overview.
But that's okay, because we saw that it used,
we saw it on the date that it used the European format, exactly.
Yep.
And the third one, I think, should have, I'm not quite sure. Oh, yeah, that's British date format and region Asia.
Okay.
And
title and view, title and overview again. Okay.
Asia. So that is 9/11/2020. So that is day, month, year. So that is the British way of doing that.
Yep.
And we have the overview, but not the
again.
Yes.
That is, Bernd, that absolutely is just lights out cool. I'm going to come back to sharing my screen here.
Sure.
Let me pick, how do I get back to here?
Not sure how I can actually
stop
I'll sharing.
Switch it. Yeah, I'm going to.
I think I already
come back. So for everyone, if you would like to reach out to Bernd, I've got his email here. I've got his LinkedIn. Just take a screenshot of this or something from the video. And what I like to do, I like to go ahead and end it with the same quote I showed at the end of my last Dork Cast. It's not really about the data, never has been, never will be. It's always, always, always about whether the data can be consumed or not. And specifically in this case, can it be consumed either offline? Can it be consumed due to legal ramifications? You have to have static reporting. So reporting is never, ever going to go away. Can it be consumed? And I think the way that you showed, which is just absolutely bonkers, you can pull the pivot table, you can pull the P&L, you can use the right formatting that's pretty for those in finance who need that type of a thing, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy cool. And the fact that you can show it in the right localization parameters. Those dates, the dollars, certainly when I look at things, you know, if you show me the 9/11/21, I'm going to assume that September. If I saw, you know, 26/9, okay, yeah, I can convert that mentally. And I've seen enough of the things. Okay, if I only see 2 zeros and a comma, I know that that's, you know, a European format. And in my mind, I just put a decimal place there. But if you were showing it without that, I might get lost, right? So the fact that you can handle that localization, and what an incredible, I mean, my bow tie is off to you guys for dreaming up a way to say, how do we provide our end users and customers the ability to parameterize this stuff and maintain it, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
really, honestly, I was trying to save you, thinking, oh, I don't want to show how hard this is to hand configure everything, right? Like, this gives you the ability for one report to use one set of parameters and for another report to use another set of parameters. You're not hard coding that at the user level. And you can use any data source. You could have
Absolutely.
you could use an RDBMS. This data could be in some ICRM system. However you want to pull that data with sense to drive all of the reporting is phenomenal. Bernd, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I hope that people reach out to you, but don't overwhelm you, so that you can keep producing great products. And we'll check that stuff out. The ability to configure so fast just blows me away. That's great stuff.
Thanks
Any
a lot.
last words you'd like to share before we end?
Well, get in touch with us. Thanks to you, Dalton. It was very, very nice to be here, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
The pleasure is all mine. All I got to do is sleep. That's my preparation as I sleep, and then I get informed through great participants like you. Thank you so much for participating in this Dork Cast with me, Bernd. I appreciate your time and your friendship. And for everybody else, hope you all have a great day.